Hey everybody, it's me, omnia, your host for Not Ready to Grow Up. Today's episode is really exciting. It's our first ever video episode. So if you're watching it on Spotify or YouTube, please let us know if you like it. I'm really excited about this episode. One of my old high school friends, Danielle, let me sit down with her and talk to her about some of the stuff she's been up to. I think the greatest story that guys could listen to is, her experience and her talking about being on the Appalachian Trail after graduating college and just kind of listening to something that's not so mainstream that we are used to. I really liked sitting down with her and enjoying it, and I hope you guys do too. And if you haven't already, follow us on all of our social medias. Our Instagram and our TikTok is at Not Ready to Grow. Our Facebook page is at Not Ready to Grow Up, and our Twitter is at NRTGU Pod. Oh no, NRTGU Podcast. Sorry, we always make that mistake. But as always, please let us know if you like this episode and if you want more video episodes in the future. And we can't wait for you guys to hear it. Let's get into the episode then. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
This has been a very long time since I last saw you or talked to you.
I know it's been, oh my God, like 2-3 years. Have we talked since like pandemic?
And we saw each other beforehand, like the summer before the pandemic hit.
Dude, that feels like literally another life ago. I can't even.
And then
it does make sense though.
But we always respond to each other's stories or like post, and we're always like,
we follow Instas, so it's like I know like what's going on, but we don't really talk one-to-one. So.
And then so like, there's a explanation, but time difference right now. So you're all the way in California.
I am in California. I'm in Monterey, California right now. So I am 3 hours behind you.
When we were planning this, I literally said to you, "Oh yeah, I'll be 12 here," and you're like, "No," and I was like, "Oh, that's right."
No. But to be fair, I've done that too, and I was like, I was almost, because I have to like set up phone calls now, because like the time is just like so hard to like figure it out. And I was like, oh yeah, it'll be like 12 your time, but then I was like, no, that'll be like 9 my time, so that's not gonna work. But yeah, so I like, it's just it's really annoying.
I mean, we made it work. We figured it out.
We did make it work. We're like, all right, I work it until 2, which I guess is 5. So anytime after that.
I worked it in my head. I was like, don't think about her time frame, just think about yours.
Yeah, I was like, no. Whatever works for you, yeah. It's definitely hard because like half the time I can't talk to my parents because they go to bed really early. And I'm like, okay, I get off work, especially when I was serving, I would like work at nighttime here. And like by the time I'm off, or even when I'm going to work, it's like they're in bed. Yeah. So it's like, okay.
So I'm gonna give you a proper introduction because a lot of people be like, who the heck is this? And why are you talking to them, Omnia? Yeah. So Danielle and I know each other way back.
Like 14. Freshman year of high school.
So horrible. I remember I was thinking about this a couple days ago, like freshman year of high school, like it was like fun and games, everything's all chill. And then sophomore year, halfway through, we had like this whole falling out, like all this like drama happened. And then junior year, we picked up.
Sophomore year though was the most dramatic year of my freaking life.
I remember. Let's not forget. We were known sophomore year of high school to subtweet everybody from our high school, so everybody hated us. And then we were like this sophomore year, we were like, yeah, we could subtweet people together. We were those girls. And then I remember something happened, and we started subtweeting each other. We were like, that's it.
I don't even remember like what happened. Like there was so much drama sophomore year. I mean, getting into a fist fight. Like
I remember that. Oh my God. I remember I called you right after. I think that's when we started being friends again. I called you and was like, what happened?
What happened? Oh my God. That was so crazy. And then junior year, I was like, I'm under the radar, dude. I can't. And then I think I chilled out, mellowed out a little bit.
Yeah. I remember junior year is when my parents moved. So I was just like not around as much. I was just there for school and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then senior year, we were walking partners for graduation.
Oh my God, yeah. You almost were late. You missed it.
Oh my God. I remember I was almost late. We had to be at a certain time. And I got there like 10 minutes after the time they told us to be there. It was so bad.
You're like running. I'm like, oh my God, thank God.
I wouldn't have left you hanging.
Crazy. That's a different life, man.
But I mean, you've lived an insane life, because I remember, because after we graduated high school, like I know we kept in touch the first 2 years of college. And I remember freshman, sophomore year, that I remember at least, was sorority girl / rave girl /
I don't even know who that is. No.
concert girl. You were like, and then like junior year, you you tried to do your semester abroad, but then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And then like that whole lockdown, you were like spiritual, astral projecting Danielle. Like, I was like,
yeah.
who is this girl? I was like, what is this? And now you're like hippie, across the world traveling, Appalachian trail hiking.
Dirtbag.
You become like, you had like 4 different personalities.
I know. It's okay. Yeah. Like literally freshman and sophomore year of college, it was literally like this like sorority girl, like super insecure, like just like broke up with my long-term boyfriend, like trying to like, find out what the heck I'm doing with my life. And then junior year was like the turning point for everything, because that summer, like the before junior year for me, it was like I just like had this like realization. I was like, oh my God, like if I think positively, like my life will be so much better. I also went to my first rave, and and then
I remember.
like, I was like fall 2019 was like peak college for me. Unfortunately, never got better after that. But it was like I knew everybody. I was like going out all the time. I was raving. I also like had like an internship and everything, so I was like doing really well. And I also had like my spiritual awakening, I guess. My goal was always to like, oh, I want to work in like finance and make as much money as I can and be successful. And then I had this realization where I was like, well, how much money is going to make me happy? Like, how do I even know what's going to be successful? Kind of made me like question my like purpose of life. And I was like, what? Like, I had this whole like identity crisis. Like, I don't even know what the right word is for it, but I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And then I like put together a bucket list, and I still update that bucket list. And then like just started going and just living, and I was raving. And spring 2020 supposed to be the year, like the time I was gonna be studying in Milan, Italy for the whole semester. And I went a month early, so that I could like travel around a little bit, like before the classes started. And luckily I did that. Like, thank God I went a month early, because I was able to go to 7 countries. It was my first time solo traveling, which was crazy because like no one spoke English.
Yeah,
like that's like jumping full into the water, like head first, like, yeah, solo traveling first time. I'm gonna do it in another country. Like,
I learned about like hostels because of you, because I remember you'd post your updates on on your Finsta, so that's how I knew what was going on. And I was like following along, and I was like, what's a hostel? I was like so like invested in it. Oh, but like, have you traveled outside the country before that?
So I went to Mexico with my family twice, but that was like resort style, and it was like, obviously with my family, so they paid for everything, and we were there for like weeks at a time. And then like this, it was like, well, I want to see everything as like that's kind of how I am. I just want to see as much as I can. And I like to like walk around a like city. So like if I go somewhere, I'm gonna walk around the entire city that day, and then sleep, and then keep going. Like the next day I'll do whatever else I wanted to do, and then I'll go to the next spot. Because like it saves me money on like staying places, because it's like, oh, it's only $20 compared to like $40 a night, like for the whole trip. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I just kept going. And then like, so I went to obviously Milan, And my first trip was to Luxembourg, which is like this really tiny little country. That was kind of cool. And then I went from there to Belgium. I was at Brussels. And then I went from there to Amsterdam. And I was like really excited for Amsterdam. And that was going to be the first time that I tried psychedelics because I wanted to try the magic truffles that they have, which is basically just like shrooms, legal shrooms. Luckily I like didn't do that because the issue for me, the biggest problem with that solo travel was like finding out when everyone ate meals because it's not the same at all as the US. And so I would be like ready to eat at like, 6 and everything's closed. And I was like, okay, well, how am I supposed to eat?
Yeah.
So I like didn't really eat that much. And then it's also like really that's where you have to speak to people. Like you have to speak to someone if you're going to order food. And so I didn't know the language and I was just like, okay. So I barely ate on this trip. And I woke up, I got to Amsterdam at night and I literally just fell asleep. I didn't eat. The only thing I'd eaten that day was like a waffle in Brussels, like a Belgian waffle. And so like I was so like just exhausted. And then I woke up and then the first thing I wanted to find was a coffee shop, which is where they sell weed legally. And I went there and I forgot my ID. And apparently I forgot my makeup this whole trip. So obviously I was like, oh my God, like I have the baby face. And then I had to go all the way back to the hostel to get my ID. And by that point, I'm just annoyed. I'm like, I just want to like smoke some weed, like calm down. And then I smoked before I ate anything. So I got so high and I was by myself in Amsterdam. It was a windy, like so windy. And I was just like walking around. Everyone knew I was high. It was like, oh my God, look, it's a high person in Amsterdam. Ha ha ha. I'm like, oh no. And like I almost got hit by like a bike and just like all this craziness. And then I went to a place like this tripping lounge because I had heard about that. And then it was the best thing I ever did because I was like, okay, like it was really nasty outside and I like to be outside. Like I like being in that, energy. So that's where I wanted to trip. And I was like, luckily, like I came here and I got this high because I should not be tripping right now. But I just hung out in this little lounge and it had like sky painted on the walls and like all these cool paintings and everything like that. It was really, really dope. And so I was just like, I waited out my high in there and I was around all of these people who were tripping. So there was like this couple from Romania. They came over first and they were like, oh, is it okay if we sit with you? Because it's like these nice little couches. And then this German guy and this other guy who's studying abroad who is actually from Gaithersburg, I think. And I was like, no way, like we're in Amsterdam.
Small
like,
town.
And so like they were all tripping and like I was just there like pretending I was tripping. I was basically tripping. I was so high, but like whatever. And I was gonna stay there 2 nights. I did stay there 2 nights. And then after the first craziness day, I was like, I'm done. Like I think I need to go back to Milan. I'm like super jet lagged still. And then I went to Germany first. And then from Germany, I was in like Hamburg. I didn't even do anything in Hamburg. I literally got McDonald's and went to bed in the hostel. And then I was like, all right, I like flying back. And in the EU, they're not super strict with their airports, except for Germany. Germany's very similar to the US. And so I had my calculator in my backpack because I literally just took my school backpack with me this whole like backpacking trip. And it's so funny now. I'm like, and then like they saw my calculator on the scan and like, what is that? I was like, I swear to God, it's just a calculator. Like I'm gonna miss my flight. Please let me go. And then yeah, I had like run through the freaking Hamburg airport and I finally got back to Milan and I didn't leave my little apartment for like multiple days. And then my roommate came back, like she moved in and I went to France, Nice. So nice. That was my favorite trip, like by far. Like that got me so excited for the rest of the semester because I was like, oh my God, this is such a great trip. Like I had such a good time. Everyone was super nice.
Like when you go into different countries, because I know they're all so close and next to each other, but like, and I know you said Germany was more like the US. Was it each culture so different? Because like I'm assuming it's common in like Amsterdam for people to like, I guess, do psychedelics and like weed, but then like it's not that common in like most places in the States.
Yeah. So most of the cities, like people were just like smoking weed outside. Like I would smell it a lot walking around. But all the cultures were definitely very different. Some people were like a little bit angrier, like some were like super chill. Like in Nice, it's like the guys I was hanging out with compared it to California. Like south of France is kind of similar to like California, whereas Paris is similar to like New York kind of a thing. Like everything is like really fast paced. They're all angry up there, and then everyone in the south of France is like really chill, and they're like slower, and they're like happier. So like that was cool. And then also it just depends, like also like they're all so close together, but almost all of them are like different languages. Like for example, I think Luxembourg was French, and then I think Belgium is French too. I don't really remember. But then you have German, and then Amsterdam, they have their own Dutch, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like obviously like Italian and all that stuff. So it's like all these different languages, hard to keep up. Everyone eats dinner and lunch and breakfast at different times. It was just like, oh, and of course, like this, like it was my first time traveling by myself. So like I did really, really well for that. But yeah, and then like I came back and I did one trip to Florence, which was in Italy, with my roommate. And that was really fun. And while we were there, we got an email saying that our classes were being pushed back a week because of this novel virus going around.
Yeah.
And then so then we were back in Milan, and we decided to get like all of our friends that we had met from orientation to like go on a big trip while we had this week. So we went to Barcelona in Spain, which was super fun, really good time. And then we were at a bar in Barcelona. We got the email from our colleges like Italy is now like stage 4, something like that on the CDC. And I was like, you have to go home. It's like, oh my God. I was like bawling my eyes out, like in this bar in the middle of Barcelona. And I was like, I need to go back to the hostel. Like I literally walked to the hostel at night alone. This like Italian, maybe he was Spanish, I don't remember, like man was like, what's on, like trying to talk to me, and I had no idea what he was saying. I was like, please go away. I don't know what you're saying. And he's like, okay, ciao. Like, okay. And then I went back to the hostel and just like cried. We all went back to Italy and like had to pack. I like was so mad. I was like, I'm not going back. I'm packed. Like I'm going to another country, because like everyone I knew was studying abroad this semester. And like, so I knew so many people in Europe, and like I was the only one being sent home, basically. Like everyone in Italy, and that was it, because Italy got shut down before everyone else did.
Yeah.
And so I was so mad. I was like, I don't want to go back home. Like I was super depressed, and my parents were like, you need to come home. Like you can't be in some other country while this is going on. We don't, because I thought it was just gonna be like the swine flu, like in a couple weeks it'll just die off, and then it's like I don't want to have to fly all the way back, like that might be it. But so eventually I went back. I was really mad, and the freaking the guy at the customs in the US, like when I got back, I think I flew into Dulles or something like that. He was like making cracked a joke, like, oh, you got sent home, huh? Because of COVID. And I was like, don't freaking talk to me. Like,
not the time, not the place, my guy.
I was so mad. And then I had to live with my parents, because my apartment that I had in Raleigh, because I went to NC State, in case anyone was wondering. But yeah, so my apartment was up because I only got like a 6-month lease, and because I was gonna be in Italy, and then I had to live with my parents for the whole lockdown, so that was really fun. So I was
Something
just
you
like,
had to do in like 3 years.
I was so like depressed. I was like, this is horrible. Like, I went from living large in Europe and like traveling the actual world to living with my mom and dad again. And yeah, so that was, and everybody else was still in Europe. And then it was spring break. So everyone who wasn't in Europe was going to go visit all of their friends in Europe. So I'm just like steaming in my room, my childhood room, like, oh, I hate my life. Like, this is horrible. Everyone's in Europe but me. And then that's when Trump was like, okay, we're closing the borders. And I remember Snapchat stories of just people running to the airport. Like, it was crazy.
That's crazy. Because
But
I
yeah,
remember Italy went into lockdown like February.
yeah.
And everything here was still back to normal. Like everything here was just already normal. And it was we knew that it was like really big in China, and then like it got to Italy, and Italy just like escalated so fast.
Yeah,
But
well, it's crazy because I didn't even know about it until like right before I left. Like, I hung out with this guy who I worked with over the summer one year, a couple years ago. And he was like, oh, like, are you worried about COVID or like coronavirus? And I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, I've been seeing it all over Twitter. Like, there's this thing going on in China. And I'm thinking, like, it's probably not that big of a deal if I haven't heard about it, you know, like, it's probably nothing. And then literally a month later, got sent home because of it.
Yeah.
And I think the reason Italy got hit so bad, and more specifically Milan, because Milan was like hotspot, is because of Fashion Week. There was a lot of like Chinese, basically like they slave labor for the fashion industry that was going on. So yay. I mean, that's speculation, obviously, but you know.
Look up Shein. If you're questioning it, look up Shein.
Look up Shein.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it's crazy because I remember like that semester, like we brought up one of my classes, we talked about it for a little bit, and like, hey, following the news, yeah, it's not. Would you hear about it? And everyone talked about it for a little bit, and that was it. And then a month went by, and then we all went on spring break, and then we get that email from spring break, like no one's coming back.
No one come back. Yeah, it was insane. And like classes all went online, and it was just like my classes didn't even start in person. Like all of my Italian, like, you know, like Italy classes were online from the start. So that sucked because those would have been really fun. But I am a little bit like, obviously I wish I could be traveling, you know, the world, but I would not be where I am right now if it weren't for all of that, because as an escape, I went hiking a lot while I was living at home, because luckily Maryland has some like decent hiking. And I accidentally hiked the Appalachian Trail. Because
you did not accidentally. I remember you like did like a little bit of it in Maryland. You're like, let me look this up, and then you like ended up like you graduated, and then like a week later you were gone.
Yeah, no, literally, because I was like, okay, no, because I was like, I went hiking at someone had posted that they were there, and that's where it got me. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Someone posted a picture at the George Washington Monument State Park up in Middletown. And so I was like, oh, that's cool, I'll go there. And then I saw a sign and it said Appalachian Trail, and it was pointing like north and south. I thought it was a loop trail in the state park, and I was like, oh, okay, like I'll go on the loop trail, like that's cool, ha ha ha. For some reason I thought the Appalachian Trail was like the thing that the like pioneers used or something, like the pilgrims.
That's what they taught us in like history class.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. I'm glad it's not. I was like, where did I even get that idea? Like, what the heck? That's
literally what they taught us in history class.
That is like not true, but whatever.
I could go into a rant about the U.S. history books and how like U.S. history lessons are
you think
awful.
That too, because everyone else was like, what the heck? When I was on the AT, they were like, what? But yeah, so like I accidentally, and then that was like the best hike ever because it was super like secluded. And I was like, the first time I was like, oh yeah, like everything's gonna be okay. Like I'm happier now. Like I'm gonna work on myself, use this time to like get better, like mentally, whatever. And then like I realized it wasn't actually a loop. and I was like 3 miles away from my car. I was like, okay, I gotta turn around. And then I was like, that'd be so cool to like hike to Pennsylvania real quick. And then I had to look it up. I was like, how long is it? You know, like that would be cool to do the whole thing. And I was like talking to Oscar about it. And I was like, oh, like we'll do this and then blah, blah. And then senior year of college happened, and I moved back to Raleigh, North Carolina, to go to school. And I was out of money when I came back, which like, so it kind of worked out that I wasn't there for like the whole semester because I would be super broke. But yeah, so I started working. Like I was like frantically looking for a job. I'm super broke. I just moved into a unfurnished apartment with my like one roommate. So I was like, okay, like I need to work. And I got 2 jobs at the same time. And I was like, I could do that. Yeah, like whatever. So I worked 2 jobs, did the full-time classes online. And then they told us we were going to be back in person in the spring. And we never were, of course. Like we were online the whole year, which was horrible. But like for fall, they had it. We came back, I think, early for classes, and then we ended, like the entire semester ended for like by Thanksgiving. Like Thanksgiving was like
mine was like that
final.
too.
Yeah. So then I had the longest winter break. I had from like Thanksgiving to like middle of January or something. I was like, I'm gonna do something. So I decided to go on a cross-country road trip from literally the day after Thanksgiving until a couple days before Christmas. And I was gonna go with this girl who is no longer my friend, but she was my friend at the time. But then I was like, thankfully, I was like, actually, I don't think we get like along very well on this. Like, I kind of want to do it on my own. Thank God I did that, because like it would have been horrible with just like, you know, whatever. But it was like the best trip ever. This is now my second like solo adventure. And I went to 13 national parks. I did like this big loop around the Southwest. And it was the same as like me on the like in Europe. I just like went place to place, and I would get out, hike like the main hiking trails for each park, and then like camp for free in my car. I slept in my car. I had this little tiny like blow up bed in my car, and then
That's
I was
so
like,
cool.
and then I like just like had like food and like cooler. It's like just kept going. And there was some cities I stayed in. Like I stayed in New Orleans, I stayed in Nashville, and I stayed in Austin and San Diego. Oh, and Vegas. Vegas is my worst favorite city ever. I hated it there. It was like I felt unsafe. That was the only time I've ever felt unsafe in a place. But yeah, so I stayed in like hostels or Airbnbs in those cities. And then the rest of the time I was like sleeping in my car, except for Utah. There was one time when I was in Utah, because I went to Zion National Park, and then I went to Bryce Canyon. And while I was in Bryce Canyon, it snowed a couple inches on me. And it was like their first snow of the season. And then I went to Capitol Reef like right after that. And it was still really cold. And I think that was when my mom was like, you need to get a place because you're going to freeze to death in your car. And I'm like, all right, well, fine. So I got like a random motel kind of thing in the middle of southern Utah. And then, yeah. Oh, and then I visited one of my friends from, oh, wait, you went to high school with me. I visited Jenna in Arizona. She goes to Arizona State. And so I went there and stayed with her. And then I went up and like went to the Sedona and like Grand Canyon. And then
I think it's also really cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool how your parents like or like just like kind of like supporting you in it, but they were like also like be safe. Yeah.
My mom wasn't a huge fan, but they have my location on Find My Friends. And like it was kind of funny because my dad would just sit there and watch me like go places like
It's like
watch
he was like watching, he was like living through you, just like watching you do it.
yeah, and he'll like text me because he like lived in Texas and stuff like that. So he was like, "Oh, how did you think of Austin?" And like he would text me about places they've been and stuff like that. So it was like, oh, like he's watched. It was like, I see you're in whatever. Like, how is it? And so, but yeah, that was super fun. And like I pretty much hiked like almost every day. And if I wasn't hiking, I was like walking around. But this also gave me like reassurance that I could probably do the Appalachian Trail, like do the whole thing, because I was able to hike like every day. And yeah, so with COVID, I wasn't really able to get a job after I was trying to get another internship. It never happened. And then I was trying to like look for a job for after graduation and like was getting rejected back and forth. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go hike and I'm gonna hike the whole Appalachian Trail. Never backpacked a day in my life, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna just do Georgia to Maine. And I just started like reading like a couple books about people doing it, and I was on Reddit. Like I literally lived on Reddit, just like trying to find out like what gear I needed and like what I should get. And I was super stressed because I didn't know anything. And I was like, oh my God, like, and I was working so much. So I didn't really have time to like go out and like do practice runs. And so I quit my jobs in April and I was severely burnt out. But I was like, whatever, I'm gonna be leaving. So I didn't do anything about it, kind of cut off a lot of people in the meantime, but whatever, it happens. And then
and so you're living the hiking life at this point.
Exactly. And then I got like most of my gear and I went like a couple days before I graduated. I went up to Asheville and I just like camped, like used my stuff and tried it out. And it was horrible because I packed so much food. I was like, this isn't gonna work. I can't do this. I'm barely going 1 mile an hour. Like, this is horrible. And then I just was like, all right, like we're doing this. This is happening. And I graduated on May 15th. And then one of my friends from work drove me down to Georgia and I started hiking on May 18th. Turned 22 on the trail by myself in the middle of the woods. And I saw my first bear that day. That was crazy. But yeah, and then I finished the trail October 14th. So it took me literally 149 days to hike 2,193 miles. Yeah, it was
insane.
Craziest experience of my life. I met my boyfriend, who I'm currently living with, and yeah, like so much happened on that. And now we got off the trail, and I wanted to live in my car because I really liked the road trip I did. So we built a bed platform in the back of my car, and then we did a couple different road trips and then went across the country, ran out of money again, and decided that we were going to stop in California for a couple months. And so we were like trying to figure out like where was like cheapest but also like walking, because we only have the one car. And now we're in Monterey, California, which is very bike friendly, very like walkable area. And we were only going to stay here for 2 months, and then we had job offers to go work at Yosemite National Park this summer, but it just like didn't end up, it wasn't gonna like, oh well, we have a new idea for our next adventure and we're going to bike from Washington State to Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. That's happening at the end of the summer. So now we're like, okay, like we might as well like stay in Monterey. Like he's working at a bike shop, so he gets a lot of like parts. And there's like, it's super bike friendly here. So it was like, we'd make more money here than we would in Yosemite. So it was like, all right, like, let's just do that for a couple more months and then we'll go on this bike trip and then we'll see what happens after that. So yeah.
That is crazy. It is so crazy. You've lived so much life in like 3-4 years that I have had in the last like 22, almost 23 years of my life.
So I've been to 7 countries in 33 states, 25 national parks, and I literally walked 2,000 plus miles in the last 3 years.
Sorority girl to hiking girl. Like
They're
the
back.
difference. Country-wise, what countries haven't you seen that you want to see?
All of them.
Okay.
Like, I definitely want to go back to Europe, finish up all the EU countries. I pretty much got most of them, like a good chunk of them, but there's like cities I want to go to too. I'd love to go to like African countries, see like Egypt, and like I saw I was like, that looks so cool, like see the pyramids, so dope.
Yeah,
And
so
like
cool. Yeah.
like just seeing the desert out there, and like I want to do it, like compare it to like, because I've been in the desert and like got a little desert tattoo.
Desert tattoo.
But yeah, I've been in the desert a lot lately, so I want to like compare the two. And then like I'd love to see, I know like this is gonna be like controversial, I guess, but I want to see the Middle East a lot, like Iran and Iraq, and like even just like all those, and probably not for a while until things maybe calm down. I don't know. I'd love to see like Asian countries too, like Japan would be crazy to see. South Korea, like China would be cool. And then I really want to see South American. The goal originally was to bike from Washington State all the way down to Patagonia, which is like the tip of South America. But Mexico is a little bit sketchy sometimes. So we're kind of like gonna play, because like the Baja Strip, which is what we're doing, isn't as bad and it's super bike friendly. So people are always out there. So we're gonna do that for now. And then like when we get to Cabo, we're gonna like decide if we're gonna keep going or not. I might just honestly fly down to Patagonia, just like go. But it'd be really cool to go to like Brazil and like bike through Brazil, because they love bikes. But yeah, like all this kind of stuff. But it's just kind of like, we'll see what happens and how much money we have. And
one of my grad classes is, we talked a lot about culture and diversity and how like as a counselor you need to have some sort of cultural competence. And I think it's so cool that you've gone to all these places, all these countries, and you just developed it by living in these countries, so you are culturally aware, and you not as like bigoted as some people out there.
Also, like, I think about this all the time, like I live like I don't have money, like all the time. Like on the trail, a lot of these people, there's some people who hike it who are just completely homeless. And like I live in like hostels, which are literally dorm rooms, basically. They're just like bunk beds in a room. And like I would live, like I wouldn't shower for like multiple weeks, like a week or so. Like, I'm like living as like, I'm not going to like resorts or hotels everywhere I go. So I'm like actually meeting people who are other cultures and other like less fortunate than my family has been. And like,
the last thing I saw you post was your plan to
bike.
Yeah. And that I thought was really cool. Yeah.
Very exciting. I'd never biked that far before, so
is that
like my boyfriend, but
this, so like I know you're saying like this, especially with walking the Appalachian Trail and like having the backpack and like the speed of that and where you were going, that's gonna be so different with biking.
Yeah.
So like, have you guys like timed that or like looked into that?
So I think it's gonna take 2 or 3 months, probably, maybe a little bit longer. It depends on like how long we take, like how much like stopping we do, and like how many miles we do a day, I guess. we're probably going to do around 50 to 100 miles a day because it's so much easier. It's a lot faster. But it also depends on the day. Yeah, I don't know. Like, we also have more of like the ability to go into towns easier. Like on the trail, you would either have to walk into town and like walk off the trail to go to town, or like literally hitchhike into town or like ask for rides and stuff. So now where we literally we're on a set of wheels, it's easier to just go another mile into town, whereas like walking, like that's a lot of work and there's not that much time in the day.
And how many miles
So,
did you walk a day at least for the Appalachian Trail?
I was walking 20 miles a day at least most days.
That's like my commute from my parents' house to my job.
Yep, I was walking that every day.
That is insane.
It was very crazy. I was burning like 6,000 calories a day, which is why I lost so much weight. I lost 38 pounds. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's crazy.
It was crazy to see because like I didn't realize it because I wasn't looking at myself. So you don't know like how you really look. I knew I was skinnier. But at my like summit pictures, I was like, oh my God, I look like nothing.
Well, most
like,
of your update pictures when you did have service or internet, it was always your face, or it was like a big wide group shot so you couldn't see your body. So I always thought you looked the same. But it wasn't till you ended and there's a picture of you when you were like standing at the top.
like, see my veins and like my
you look
legs.
so different. Yeah.
I know. I was like, oh my God, like it was crazy. And I didn't realize at the time. I knew I was okay, like at the end too, to be fair. Like there's this thing called hiker hunger, and I never actually experienced it but until the end. But like it's a lot of times it starts like right away. You're so hungry because you're like burning all those calories, and you can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and never like not be able to like get rid of that hunger because like you're burning so many calories. And that's what like a lot of people had, but I never had that. Like I would always hit a wall, and it depended on how much I was eating. Like normally, like if I was eating a little bit less than I should have, I would kind of be able to eat more. Like in the Shenandoahs, I was I don't think I was eating enough, and I ate 2 burgers when I went into town. But then like I hit a wall and I wasn't able to eat anymore. Like most people could eat like more than that. Like my boyfriend was able to eat like so much food. And it wasn't until the very end, because I didn't really realize that my hunger had started kicking in because I was just eating like snacks and like I was eating Sour Patch Kids and stuff like that, especially with like my boyfriend. He's like, you need to eat candy, and like, you know, it's getting me into that. And then there's this thing called the 100-mile wilderness, which is the last 100 miles before the like state park that you go into with the rock, like the final mountain. And like there's no town for 100 miles. And usually there's this like general store at the end of it, but it was closed because it closed like 10 days before we got there. And so we had to pack all of the food for that amount of time, which is a lot of food. And the resupply spot that we had was the end of the season, so they didn't have a whole lot of stuff, and it wasn't the same as like the grocery stores or the Dollar Generals that we were used to like resupplying. And it turned out I did not resupply enough food, so that was like the only time I was like so hungry. I have never been that hungry in my life. It was really scary. Like I felt like I was dying and like I couldn't just stop because like I was in the 100-mile wilderness. And luckily my boyfriend and I like planned, like we were like, all right, we can't do this, like we're just gonna have to eat all of our food, not because you had to like eat it. You're carrying all this weight of food, but you couldn't eat it all because you had to save it. So it was like, oh my God, like I see this food that I want to eat, but I can't eat it because I have to save it for tomorrow, you know? So it was just like that. And then you're so hungry. It was like, you know, you're walking so much anyways. And then because you're trying to finish like with the amount of time that you have food for. And so we were like, all right, we're going to have to like go into a town like pay a lot of money because we're in the middle of nowhere. They had to pay a lot of money to go into town when we finished this 100-mile wilderness. And luckily we were able to like resupply because we had enough food to get out of the 100-mile wilderness. We did not have enough food to camp and then climb the last mountain. So we had to go into town to like get food for that. And luckily we did, because I was so hungry and like it was horrible.
That like puts it into perspective for the people who like don't have access to food or who have to like ration their food to make it last.
Yeah, it was like a crazy thing to experience because like, you know, you have access to food all the time, but like out there it's like, you know, you have to carry it, and if you're out, you're out, and if you don't have access to like a store. So yeah, it was definitely a crazy experience. It also was like really great. Like I missed it so much because it was just like an experience unlike anything else. Like my inner child was just like in full force. Like I was excited because like I was like, oh my god, there's this like little place on the trail that sells cookies for hikers, gives cookies for hikers. I was like, I can't wait for a cookie. Or like going into a gas station was my favorite thing ever because you could get whatever you wanted. Like I quit like drinking soda freshman year of college, and then I drank more soda on the trail in the 5 months I was hiking than I drank in like 5 years. So I was like, I'm like drinking like, oh my God, I get to go to this gas station, get any food I want, and like drink anything I want. So like that was really hard coming off the trail, because then it's like, well, I can't eat anything that I want because I'm not burning 6,000 calories a day. Like, and so
there's a workout.
Yeah. So it was just like, and then like, you know, being excited to shower, like appreciating showers and like having a bed to sleep in for the night. Like you get super excited for those things, like those small things that you're usually just like, well, I obviously always have a bed, but then it's like out there it's totally different.
Yeah.
So
like what was the best part then of like the whole trail?
I feel like it was like, I've actually recently been like trying, like been journaling again, because I'm trying to like, I've gotten the urge to run away lately because I'm burnt out still. So I've been like trying to figure out like, okay, what made me so happy on the trail, because I miss that. Like I miss it so much. It was definitely because, one, it's like forced meditation every day, because you're walking in your thoughts every day, like for 20 miles of walking, like that. And then also like you're exercising every day. My hormones were like through the roof. Like I didn't get my period for 5 months.
Oh wow.
So it was like, obviously, like I was like exercising so much, like the exercise, the hormones, like that's like, that was like super great. Also being surrounded by that community. The community is insane on the trail. Like everyone has the same goal and everyone else is trying to help you to that goal. So like there's so many people who are just willing to like do anything, give you anything. Like there's this thing called trail magic, and people would just give you stuff. Like people would set up tables with food for you, like on the trail, so that you can walk by and like have food, and like giving people rides. Like I hitchhiked by myself for the first time, and like it was just like a crazy, like everyone's so nice. They're like, oh, she's a hiker, like let me help you out. Like, or like, oh, if I was in pain or something, like my feet were hurting almost half the trail, and people were like, here's like this balm, like try this, or try this like tape that I have, like this should help. You know, people were just like, oh, you can come over here, and like, you know, so nice. Like people were insane. And then like the community of hikers, like you know someone for one day, and it feels like you know them for like your entire life, basically, because you're walking and you have nothing else going on, no other distractions. So you really get to know a person. Like those kind of relationships, like the bond, like with my boyfriend, I knew him for 1 month. We met beginning of September, and then so we hiked until the end together. So we knew each other until October 14th on the trail. and I felt like I knew, like when I got off, I was like with friends from my like the restaurant I used to work at. We went to Puerto Rico, and like they were like, oh yeah, like so you only know each other for like it's like 2 months. I was like, what the heck? Like what the heck? I feel like I know everything about this dude. I feel like I've been with him for like 2 years and it's been 2 months. Like it was just like insane the amount of like connections that you get. And like I don't know, I do miss it a lot. But
so you were talking about like hiker mentality and like how like it was really nice and refreshing. I know you brought up earlier like you struggled a lot with your mental health, and we talk about mental health a lot on the podcast. So how is it so different now?
Okay, well, the first thing that I noticed like after coming off the trail was just like gas stations and like that like joy of just like getting to eat anything you want really went away. Because like as soon as you stop hiking, it's like there's like a known thing in the hiker community where it's like you gain all the weight you lost back. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to be me. But then that put like a lot of pressure on myself because it was still like I still had that like hunger and that craving for like all this food, and I couldn't really enjoy it the way I was able to on the trail when I was like burning so much calories. But so that really like took a big toll. Also losing that much weight in like a short amount of time and like not really being able to like see it happening because I never looked in mirrors or anything. It was really, really hard. Like that was like I've always struggled with like body image issues. But that was like the worst it's ever been for me. Like I would look in the mirror, and I think because too I was worried about gaining all of the weight back. I was like I just saw myself how I used to be, you know, like my body, I couldn't see how skinny I was basically. Like I just looked like I looked before I started the trail, and it was hard for me to tell if I was gaining weight or not.
But you found that like just like having the bare necessities and just living a very simple life, you felt more happier than just having everything that everybody sits and yearns for and like fights for. And we talk about all the time on the podcast, like being in college, being in school, trying to get an education to be happy, or a career we want that we think we'll be happy in. And I'm like, you graduated college, you have a pretty good degree too, but like that's not what makes you happy. It's like this the little thing, just hiking is like what makes you the happiest.
Yeah, literally just like traveling and hiking and seeing the world is what I would rather be doing than a desk job. So
and like because I've been learning about so many different cultures and communities in like my grad school classes and like counseling them, and now it's like making me think of like if I ever had like someone from the hiking community in as a client, like I would need to know that culture and that community because that's so different than the rest of the world, and it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even just in the hiker community, it's like all kinds of people from all walks of life, all situations, especially on the AT, because that's just such a big trail. Like people go to like find themselves, and like they're coming from all kinds of situations, and you know, just to like see what they can do and push themselves. And I wasn't even in the bulk of it. Like I started after most people do. So like, and then the people I met were just, you know, it was craziness. But yeah, there's more people every year.
And so my last question for you, because I've noticed it and I thought it was really cool and I wanted to know more about it. There's like lingo. And I noticed you're like on your Facebook post, you're like, when you refer to yourself not as Danielle, but as Happy Feet.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. So there's so cool. There's trail names. There's a whole bunch of lingo. It's super cool. But like, so trail names is like, instead of going by your name, you get this trail name that like something happens and you're given it to. Like, so for me, my trail name is Happy Feet because when I went downhill, I would do like a little run downhill and like so that I was supposed to help my knees, but whatever. And like I would just like run downhill and everyone would be like, you have like the little like the penguin, like little Happy Feet. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. So that happened. It took me a long time to get a trail name because like I would hike alone a lot. and I would just like hike through a bunch of people, like a bunch of groups. So I finally had like a group that I was with for a while, and they're like, oh, that's a good one. So that was fun. My boyfriend was ultra burn because he was wearing the ultra lone peaks the whole trail, and like his shoes, and he left them by the fire to like dry them out after like a rainy day in the Smoky Mountains, and it burned a hole in the back of him. So he got ultra burn.
That is
and then
so
like
funny.
there was one guy I met when I met my boyfriend. His name was Lucky, and he got that because he stepped on a rattlesnake and it didn't bite him, so he was lucky. There's this guy Walmart. He's like one of the guys who hikes it over and over again, like every year. He did his first hike with just Walmart gear. Like he would just get gear from Walmart, so they called him Walmart. At the end, we summited. It was me, Happy Feet. There was Happy Thoughts, who I hiked with. She was on YouTube a lot because she would just always have like a happy thought at the end of her videos. And then there was Happy Meal. Then there was Happy. So like all four of us were just like at the end together. It's like we were in Maine together pretty much. So that was fun.
It's like all the happies are
all the
like
happies. Yeah. So that's that. So that's the trail names. And then there's Trail Magic, which I explained. And that's like a big thing. Like, oh my God, there's trail magic up at the next crossing or whatever. Like, there's different directions you can hike. You can hike from Georgia to Maine, and you can hike from Maine to Georgia, or you could do a thing called flip-flop. And that's when you hike like you start like either in the middle or anywhere else, and you hike down, and then you flip up and you hike the rest of it. And so there's northbound or Nobo, and that's Georgia to Maine. And then there's southbound or Sobo, that's like Maine to Georgia. Then there's zeros, which are days off where you're not hiking. You hike 0 miles. There's Neros, and those are usually like going into town. You'll hike like 10 miles instead of 20, and then like you just take the rest of the day off. There's through hikers, and then there's day hikers and section hikers. And sometimes we'd call them like weekenders or like the weekend warriors or something like that, because those would always be more crowded on certain parts of the trail on the weekends.
Gotcha.
There's all these day hikers and stuff like that. There's like shuttles, and like it was literally just people driving you. Like we have hiker hostels. People literally like built little hostels in their houses. Like they put bunk beds in their house, and that was it. Like
that is crazy.
Funny. There's like trail towns, which are just towns like along the trail, so they're used to hikers coming through. Oh my God, this one guy was like trying to tell me to do the dirty 30, which was like 30 days without a shower. Because the longest I went without a shower was 12 days. And that was when I met my boyfriend. It was like in the middle of that. It was like day 10 when we met. So I'm like the stinkiest I've ever been. And he's like, yeah, she's the one. And so I was like, he's like, oh, you should just go for the dirty 30. That was Walmart, actually. And I was like, no.
That's so funny.
Absolutely not. So
how would you shower though?
You would shower at those hostels and like in town. So like some place, like most of the hostels had showers you could use. There was sometimes like showers you could find like at campgrounds and stuff that would let you use them. But yeah, showers, you do laundry at the hostels usually.
And I remember some of the few updates I would see, you would always be getting new shoes. Like your feet.
Oh my God.
Like, killing you.
So I also started in those ultra lone peaks that my boyfriend used the whole trail. But I don't know if you've ever heard of what like zero drop shoes are. It's pretty much like no support at all. Like your foot is the only thing like keeping your foot from the ground is this little tiny piece of foam, basically. My boyfriend like really likes them because he doesn't have anything, like he has flat foot, like whatever. And like you need, like if you wear like flip-flops or just like no supportive shoes ever, you're fine. But I don't. And so I didn't know that that was like a thing when I got these shoes. They were just like super popular online. And my feet kind of pronate a lot like this when I walk. And my feet hurt every day for a month or two. I don't remember. And it was because there was no support in these shoes. And so I was like, I need new shoes. So the first trail town I zeroed at, it was Hot Springs, North Carolina. And I went into this Outfitters, or no, it was the NOC, the Nantahala Outdoor Center. They had an Outfitters there. And I was like, my feet hurt. I'm in these shoes. And they were like, oh, you're in the wrong size. Like, why don't you try these instead? So I did that. And then it was literally like the same shoe, just like a different size. So I did that, and my feet still hurt so bad. And I was like, I can't, like, F these shoes. I don't want to wear these anymore. Like, I can't do this. So then I went to Hot Springs and got a different pair of shoes, completely different. They were basically like, because no one wears boots, it's only like trail runners. And so these shoes, the new shoes that I got, were like they looked like boots, but they were trail runners, and they were more supportive, but they ripped like my heels apart, and like I had like the worst blisters on my heels. So walking in them sucked for the first week that I had them, and I was so upset because I was like, this is my third pair of shoes. Like, I'm so sad. And then luckily I was able to like break those in, and like with the help of like one of the guys I met in Tennessee, he was like, oh, here's like, you should use this kind of band-aid or whatever. And like, luckily everything was fine after that. And I was able to put like 700 miles on those shoes. And then I had like, because the shoes wear out, like you're walking in them every day. I mean, I put 700 miles on those shoes. So it's like, I have to get a new pair, because then like it just like wears away, and then it started hurting again. So I got a new pair of shoes. I got the Solomons, and I wore those until I put like 600 miles on those, I think. And then I got another pair of those in New Hampshire, and I wore those till the end. And those were like falling apart at the end, because like the last couple like 100 miles, they're the worst miles anywhere. It's like the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and it's literally just like you're like rock climbing and like on like flat sheets of rock, and just like really steep mountains, like so much elevation. You're climbing these like 4Kers, like 2 or 3 of them a day. It's like insane. And then Maine, beginning of Maine, is literally just like also the same kind of thing, and it's like wet, and there's like tree roots everywhere, and just like so much. And like it was funny because like there's like 100-mile markers every 100 miles. People write like, oh, 700 miles, whatever. And you're like, oh, it doesn't feel like I've hiked 1,000 miles. When you reach the 2,000 miles up in Maine, you're like, nope, it feels like I've hiked 2,000 miles. I'm dying. There's like one shelter, so like they have little like buildings, like cabins basically on the trail, like every 10 miles or so, where you can like camp in or around. And like they have little log books, and like hikers will write in the log books. And in one of them in Maine, everyone's just depressed. Everyone's like, I can't keep going. I'm so close, but so far. Like, this sucks. Like, I want to like quit, but I don't want to quit. It's like so bad. I was like, oh my God.
Do you wanna plug anything before we go?
If you want to follow my next adventure at the end of the summer, you can follow me on Instagram, because I'll probably be posting about it. It's Danielle with 3 E's and then BENE with no spaces or anything like that. But yeah.
And do you have any words of wisdom you want to part with our listeners?
Dude, if you want to do it, just do it. Like, doesn't matter. Like, you're never gonna regret doing it. You're gonna regret not doing it.
Period.
So if you have anything that you're trying to do, go do it. Do it while you're young, because you're just gonna get sucked into life and you're never gonna do it. So that's my words of wisdom.